ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello everyone, and welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. It's time once again for new anime season. We have our season preview this episode for the summer 2020 season, and it's gonna be a weird one, I think. For the main reason, I think, is because there's just not a lot of shows, which we kind of anticipated, whether they were bumped because of the COVID situation or whatever. We kind of thought that was going to happen because shows that would have been airing this season would have been production about when the whole pandemic thing was starting, or they would have started around then or something, I don't know. But I was counting about half the new shows we would normally see in this season, so that's one thing. And the other thing is the shows that we did get. Well, maybe we'll let everybody else be the judge once we get to them, but it's going to be an interesting episode, needless to say. Before we get into it, though, let's just introduce everybody. I'm Jel. I am joined, as always, by Iro.
I'm still here. I'm not dead yet, no matter what my body is trying to do.
We're joined by G.
What's good, y'all?
And this week we have Aqua.
As opposed to Iro, I am actually dead. Sorry.
Okay, well, we have performed the rituals to summon your spirit here with us to talk about some very bad anime. It's a real waste of necromancy.
I shall not be late to rest until these anime have been eviscerated.
Yeah. It's a real waste of necromancy here, but
as veterans of the anime mines, we've all worked in the anime mines for years now, and I gotta say, the prospect is looking pretty grim this season. I feel like we're gonna have to dig deep this time to find.
What are you
anything.
saying? Are the damn lefties going to shut us down and put us out of a job?
Potentially, maybe so. The way things are looking.
Yeah. I think because normally there's enough shows where just out of sheer quantity we're gonna find stuff, but there's just not enough to go on this season. But we'll get into that though in a minute. I did want to cover a couple of things still from spring season going on. Most of the shows we're watching have just ended. A couple of things are still going on, and just wanted to mention a few things before we get into the new stuff.
Because our next episode is going to be the proper season wrap up.
Yeah, so we'll cover all those shows that we've been doing this season in depth next time.
Oh boy, are we going to be talking about Gleipnir for 10 hours?
Did anybody actually finish that?
I'm still watching that.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I feel like we had our discourse moment, at the beginning of the season, and then never spoke of it ever again.
I admire your.
I'm fine with continuing to never speak of it ever again.
I admire your tenacity, Aqua. That's impressive.
I mean, look, compared to some of the shows we actively decided to finish this season, I mean, could it even truly be the worst thing?
Yeah, sure. I think so. Yeah.
All right. Look, Iro's the one who has. I've dragged Iro through some truly awful shit this season. So if he's still saying that, then
look, does listeners ask the important moral quandary of if you can turn into a huge fursuit and a hot girl gets inside of you and kills a person while wearing you, did you commit the murder? Think about that.
No, but it has anime prints, so
That is true.
Anyway, first thing we wanted to mention is a very special episode of Kaguya-sama Love is War this past week, which is not the last episode. I believe there's at least one more, right?
It's the vibe I get, yeah.
I didn't get an exact count, but I'm pretty sure there's at least one more episode.
Did they have an after school special episode?
Almost.
Yeah, not like quite, but it is definitely like. I mean, I think this is the first episode of Kaguya-sama in a while that has been probably purely dramatic, right? Like I don't remember I don't remember any comedy bits in
I mean, put it like this: I did not expect to hear the words "revenge porn" in Kaguya-sama ever.
In a serious context.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes. Actually, yes. That is a good...
Did Ishigami go to another world where he can make everyone his slaves or something?
No, and also I feel like Ishigami's better than that, or at least I've decided that he's probably better than that after this episode.
Yes. So, this has been the Ishigami arc where we finally get his backstory that's been hinted at through, since he's been introduced.
Is it tragically dark and depressing or something?
I mean,
it kind of is, but they handle it in a way that it's not.
It's like, what if you take your standard like isekai protagonist who's like bitter about everyone. Everyone betray me. That kind of stuff.
My girlfriend stole my money.
But, like, it's, like, both realistic and empathetic, and not just there to, like, affirm the audience's feelings of, like, yeah, that's right, normies are bad, women are bad, and it's just, like... It focuses more on the humane side of it all. Like, it is something that could actually happen to someone.
Yeah, here's my spin on it. Like, if you just kind of say it out, it sounds like one of those like like you're saying the tragic backstory that justifies why this guy's a jerk situations. But they do a lot of like subtle things to make Ishigami a lot more like sympathetic, like you're saying. So one of the things I was thinking is like the gist of the idea, spoiler alerts everybody, but the gist of the idea is that when Ishigami was in middle school, he was kind of a loner or whatever, and this girl was nice to him, and then he found out that her boyfriend was cheating on her and was like a huge scumbag, and was like, to shut him up, basically they were implying he was using like nude pictures of her to like blackmail.
I mean, yes, I was gonna say not just like cheating on her, but also like the implication being either filming or photographing her, and like if not already sharing those with his friends, like more than at least willing. I mean,
he was basically like up to Ishigami. It's like, if you don't tell anyone that I'm cheating on her, I'll show you these nudes I have of her. Like,
yeah. So Ishigami's response is beat the crap out
dramatic
of him, I guess.
I mean, well, so here's the thing, right? Like, even someone even someone like me who tends to fly off the handle pretty quickly. The thing that I think the Ishigami backstory segment does well is like. So, as someone who had a history in middle and high school of lashing out with physical violence against people who had wronged me, and then proceeding to not provide any verbal explanation for why I had physically assaulted someone, there's something very real about the Ishigami backstory episode in the sense that it gets into like. I'm not, again, it's not the thing that Kaguya-sama doesn't do is, normies, they're all just like judgmental dickheads or whatever, right? But it gets to this idea that like in a like ostensibly like rational and I guess normalized society, like a dude who has long been known to be a loner and a social outcast suddenly physically lashing out and beating the crap out of somebody who, at least up until then, had not been outed as a toxic predator yet. Like, everyone's going to go,
right?
Of course they're going to
why'd
judge.
You beat up this guy?
Right, because at that point there is, again, this is not to defend the actions of the boyfriend in the situation. He is a real piece of crap, but like, it gets to this idea that like, in a fair society, you have to to out people and expose them for their crimes. You have to put in some legwork, right? You can't just like start swinging fists as
right. You can't say he's guilty because I punched him in the face.
Right, like nobody will believe you, especially with the social dynamic that is at play. Of course, everyone's just gonna, And I think that's the thing it does well, right? Compared to, a lot of these sort of, like, incel fantasies is where, like, the loner lashes out and beats up, the Chad in this situation. And then suddenly everybody in the crowd starts clapping, the heroine swoons for the main character, or whatever, and, like, the protagonist is justified in his actions
anger.
and his righteous anger and his probable distaste for women or what have you. Whereas Ishigami's actions are explicitly portrayed as sympathetic, but like ultimately
ill-advised,
misguided and self-destructive.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it handles.
Sorry. Go ahead.
It handles that in a with a level of nuance that you don't usually see in these kinds of backstory things, right?
Right, because usually this backstory is like, oh no, people hate me or I'm oppressed because I'm a nerd.
Right.
Whereas here, it's like it shows that being a social outcast can indeed get you in trouble through no fault of your own, because everyone is like, oh, you're just beating up this poor guy because you're in love with his girlfriend, you're just a creepy stalker.
Right.
But
which is
like it also shows what effect that can have, and without actually putting the blame on those people, because an important part of the episode is where at the end Ishigami realizes like these people just saw what they saw, and what they saw was that I was the aggressor and that I was just beating up this guy, but that doesn't make them bad people just because they're not like me, and he
I think
even sees the rest of this cheer squad and they're like, okay, these are good people,
Right. I mean, I think the rest of the episode does have an effective. The thing that really like kind of brings this episode like around, like to is yes, at the conclusion where basically the thesis, again, compared to a lot of like anime that kind of explore this type of like tonal backstory, the actual thesis of Kaguya-sama is that it is a good thing to come out of your shell and to hang out with, people you would, call quote unquote normies, right? Like it is a good thing to interact with people that are, part of, I guess, normal society, so to speak, right? And that, that even normal society isn't even like a real construct, right? It is more just like people are people, and that like everyone is kind of going through their own kind of like individualized struggles and trials and tribulations. And again, like mad props to apologies. The
anime police is here.
No,
that
is the fire department. I live on a road.
We aren't talking about Fire Force.
No. I get so many sirens.
It's your burning soul, G.
I get so many sirens now that I can identify each siren individually by which department they come from. But just yes, the idea that like it is a good thing that Ishigami stopped being a loner, right? Like a lot of anime in this vein kind of glorify and lionize the loner, right? Like, he's a loner because that is like the strength of his conviction. Like nobody else
they want to make
gets
their target audience feel better about themselves,
but,
that you're justified in staying home and playing dating games all day.
But Ishigami's like, no, being a loner sucks. I don't want to be a loner. I want to have friends. I want to be a part of society. And, again, like, give that fucking director a raise because, like, the part, right? Like, at first, like, I kind of clued into it when they kept, like, the like specific like visual choice to not show the eyes of the cheer club.
Yeah, we sort of.
I was like,
it's a silent voice with the crosses, except this time their eyes
it's
are
an
missing,
inherently
right?
like dehumanizing effect, right? Like these people are just whatever, right? Like they're NPCs, so to speak, right? And then at the end when like he finally opens his eyes for the first time and sees that these are people like me, like. Maybe we've gone through different things, but, like, that doesn't change the fact that, like, we're all in this together, basically, right? And it's really effectively done.
Now I understand why they got the director from Rakugo to do that.
Yeah, it's good. And, I guess I don't want to linger on it too long, but the last thing I'll say is, like, man, I hope they announce a season 3 because I feel like the things they are putting, picking up and putting down here in season 2 is like with only one episode left. It's like, I don't know if there's a way you can end this in a satisfactory manner. I feel like we gotta keep this train going, man.
I just gotta say, our boys still got a long way to go. But what I don't want to talk about is like how they. I think another important thing that sets it apart from the incel fantasy is how they treat the girl, Kyoko, in this case, because like. At one point, she shows up again in the present to have a look at her old school because she transferred schools, and she sees him doing his relay race, and she just starts yelling at him "Yeah, I hope you die! I hope you fall on your face, you bastard! But because of you, my boyfriend broke up with me." And even though he says "Shut up, idiot." It's never really treated as this girl gets her comeuppance, because there is no real resolution to that. She leaves the festival still resenting him, still hating him.
Yeah, I mean,
her friends supporting him. Yeah, that's right, that guy's a creep, and you gave him what he deserved. And Ishigami's okay, this is okay, not everyone is always going to like me. I might just open this whole can of worms again if I try talking to her, trying to tell her the truth about what happened.
Right.
But he sort of lets go of that one girl. Whereas
I mean,
in a show like Shield Hero, you have the girl who wronged me is also the biggest evil villain, and she's trying to take over the kingdom, and we must destroy her and humiliate her and
right.
all the
send her off to the rapist king guy or whatever happened,
and then,
right?
rename her bitch and stuff like that. Yeah,
right. I think it's as Kaguya herself kind of puts it in that episode, right? Really, realistically, her only crime is just being naive, right? There is no reason why we should expect or even desire some kind of karmic comeuppance for her when, again, the worst crime she commits is just
if there was a fight between your boyfriend and this slightly socially awkward dude that you have been nice to, I think it would be very, very normal for someone to think of okay, this awkward dude is clearly in love with me and now he's beating up my boyfriend because he's jealous. I think that's a very normal reaction.
Yeah, that's what I mean, right? The worst crime she commits is just jumping to conclusions, and it's that's not that's realistic, right? That's not a that doesn't make her some kind of villain, right? It doesn't make her evil. That's
just how life goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Whereas there are definitely shows that would make her out to be the villain.
Right. Yep. And I like how they did, and they brought it back full circle with the student council has had his back the whole time, right?
Yes. I suppose the only actual slight gag in that whole episode is probably just that. I guess based on the handwriting, I guess that report was put together by Fujiwara. So because when Shirogane presents the report of we were looking into your case, it's written in very bubbly words with sparkles and flowers on the cover, and I was okay, Fujiwara wrote this.
Right.
Hey, she's an ace detective. We know this.
Something they even. Yes, that's right. That I forgot the detective thing. So they brought that full circle. I really like even how they tied in the Ino thing that they were hinting at the whole time with Ishigami being maybe those two are more alike than
you guys are ready for the slowest burn in anime history.
I mean, it's the realization of this episode. I was oh god, Ishigami and Ino are both those two pick law route in Shin Megami Tensei, huh? They're those kinds of people.
Well, because we had the hint of it when she was giving her speech and Ishigami was getting.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's I don't think we need to recap all of this, but I think the point is that the show has done a really good job of building and constructing these frameworks, and so that when it all comes together, right? It's like Ino's her flashback doesn't even come up during this episode, and I don't think it needs to, right? Because we already know from prior episodes that she argued and advocated for Ishigami, and it's a show that has done such a good job of building those frameworks doesn't need to rely on constant flashbacks to remind you.
They only need to give you one or two quick shots to remind you, and they don't have to say anything.
Yeah,
they just tie it back all together.
Just remind you, Ino was here.
Right. Aqua, just one more question. Having read the manga version of all this, like, how does that compare? Like, have they done a lot in the anime different, or is it pretty much the same?
This was a lot more impactful, I think, because they dedicated an entire episode to it. Whereas in the anime, this is not necessarily a moment I remember.
Oh, you mean in the manga? You mean
in the manga? Yeah, this is like the thing is like because this is a part of like a big Ishigami arc, right? And this is just the starting point.
Oh,
and
okay.
and like this particular scene, I know his backstory, but it did not leave as much of an impact on me that I remember the individual beats. In fact, I always remembered, because if you know me, you know that my memory is a bit shaky. I always remembered Kyoko, the girl that he was in love with, or not in love with, the girl with the boyfriend, and Tsubame senpai from the cheering club. I always assumed them to be the same person.
Oh, okay.
Huh.
Right. So when I watched this episode, I was like, oh, those were two different characters. Oh,
Whoops.
which probably tells you about how much attention I pay to the things I read and watch. So I have to say,
well, hey, in the anime they can have different hair colors.
Yes,
so
the
that
anime can have the benefit of using hair color and other methods too.
Let us spin this into a positive something, in that the anime's direction made it a lot more impactful, gave it the oomph that it deserved. And because, like, that's a thing I always find important with manga versus anime, is pacing. Because I experience manga very differently than anime, because in manga I can read at my own pace, which is very fast. So I just sort of go over everything, and it sort of just blends together in my head. Whereas with anime, the director is in charge of the pacing. You know, you can't choose for yourself whether you gloss over something or whether you savor every moment of it. It's the director who decides what is important and what is not, and how things are presented. And I think sometimes that's very good, because it allows an anime to make me appreciate stuff more that I sort of missed the real impact of in the manga. For example, this entire episode, or for example, the scene in The Flowers of Evil where they trash the classroom, which is just like a couple of shots in the original manga, but it's like an entire an entire episode almost in the anime.
Yeah, that's
and whereas sometimes it's the other way around, where it's just like an anime takes so long to adapt something that I just sort of quickly went over in the manga. And it's not that I quickly went over it because I found it boring, it's just that, this is the pace at which I process information. And then when the anime does it, and it takes like 15 minutes, it can be incredibly frustrating, which is why I very often end up being disappointed with anime adaptations. So I think that shows that's sort of proof of what something G often mentions, that you don't have to do a one-by-one shot-per-shot adaptation of the manga, because that will almost never work.
Right.
You have to make an original work, adapting the material, but pacing it to an anime style. And I think the director did a very good job at that this episode.
Right. So, once again, give the director a raise. On this one.
Have him almost as much as the voice actors.
Oh yeah, I mean everything is top notch on this show. It's pretty great. So, all right, let's move along. I don't want to talk too much about Kakushigoto, which did end, because we're going to talk about that next time. G, I just want to give you the opportunity to take your victory lap.
We need to answer the question, man. Is he dead?
I was right, and that's what I can say.
Spoiler alert for anybody else. No, he's not dead.
What a surprise!
They had me fooled a bit when they started showing him getting like crushed by the manga.
I mean, that's a very that is a very that dude move, right? Like, it is a dark joke. It is darkly ironic. that sort of thing.
But,
I mean, it would be the blackest possible thing would be that he is dead and he died in an extremely humiliating way. Like,
right.
he did not wither away from anime disease, but he was like, I don't know, crushed under a bunch of skeevy.
Yeah, after his career had been ruined and everything. So, it ended up being a very it was a very sweet, nice ending.
It's a very the way I put it. Again, on one hand I want to gloat that I called what happened to Kakushigoto. On the other hand, it's not that I'm disappointed. It's more like this is the sensible direction they had to take to get to the conclusion they wanted, and the conclusion that they wanted is, I think, ostensibly and broadly a good one. I think it is the ending that Kakushigoto deserves, but boy, do they really just kind of sprint to the finish line in that last episode.
They throw in a lot, including this like elaborate family backstory that didn't really add anything to the.
I don't know. It's one of those things. Like, maybe it's in the manga, but apparently one of Hime's deep-seated anxieties was that she wasn't, that Kakushi was not, her real dad. That she was an illegitimate love child or adopted. Apparently that was a thing she was worried about, because a new character that we had not seen up till now had to show up and be like, don't worry, you're the real kid. And it's like, oh wait, that was a problem? That was a concern.
Right, that was even a question? Right.
Right, I was
Could this be a thing with the manga ending where there were they were working on the anime, and then they got the news hey, the manga's ending, and they were like, oh shit, we need to cram all this stuff into our last episodes.
They ended so closely to each other. I have to assume that the anime staff was probably informed that hey.
But maybe they only got a phone call of this and this happens, but they didn't actually
Well, because I think production-wise, it doesn't feel like the last episode came out of nowhere, or it doesn't feel like it was made in a rush. It just feels like. Yeah.
Particular plot points were crammed in. Yeah. They might have just. I mean, they honestly just might not have time.
Right, I mean, fuck. For all we know, even the manga rushes this stuff, right? We don't know the source material. So.
Well, that and they only had 12 episodes to begin with. Right. And even if you knew the whole plot, it doesn't necessarily mean you can cram it into 12 episodes if it's more than 12.
Yeah, it is definitely a thing of, I think that the show really could have benefited from, even one or two more episodes, before the finale, but. Yeah, I think that as a whole, though,
steal a couple away from Sing Yesterday for me and give them to Kakushigoto.
Basically, yeah, that would be a fair trade, I assume, based on the way y'all talk about that show.
We'll save all that for next time for sure. But
because, I'm of two minds about it, because I think there is something holistically special about the fact that Kakushigoto, the show, is based entirely on the time period of Hime's childhood, because the flashback of how did the rest of their life go after that? It's it kind of takes that dark downturn, right? Kakushi Sensei loses his job. They kind of have to move to a smaller house. He's kind of constantly struggling in manual labor jobs, and they
reveal the whole thing about him searching for his dead wife.
Right? Yeah, all this stuff, and it's maybe we didn't need 2 episodes of. Kakushi Sensei and Hime living in squalor and struggling to make ends. Maybe that doesn't fit the tone, right? Because maybe the show is meant to be about the nostalgic period of childhood that Hime remembers when
things were at their best,
right? When things were quote unquote perfect, right? When, or maybe that's something. Maybe that's just that gets into some that childhood end shit. That was the last. That was the period of childhood innocence or something. But I still think that on some level. There must have been a more graceful way to onboard it, but I do think that the ending itself is very solid. I really liked it a lot.
The ending the show deserved.
Yeah, the plot itself was a little hackneyed, but also the author kind of poked fun at it. And I do think that actually, in a weird ways, it does serve as an effective metaphor for so spoilers, right? Kakushi Sensei wakes up from his coma, and he has amnesia, and specifically his memory stops at Hime's 10th birthday or 11th birthday, right? And so
even though she's now 18.
Right. So he still thinks that, like, you know, his daughter is a young girl. And I don't know if this is intentional, but I kind of like to interpret that as a metaphor for, like, he's an overprotective single dad, and, like, on some subconscious level, maybe that was always his subconscious desire to infantilize his daughter, you know, like
oh yeah, I mean, like, I mean, I do that with some of my own family members sometimes, where I still treat them like they're 6 years old. Even
right.
though they're, like,
It's
20.
like, I have cousins who, you know, I watched, you grow up from, like, like, I was there since they were born, and, like, now they're like 15, and I still do fucking dumb old man shit to them, and they're like, dude, I'm a fucking teenager, and I'm like, oh right, I always forget. And it's not even like they're that small, right? It's like they're almost my height, and it's like I still, right? So you internalize that they're children because that is what you remember of them. And I feel like maybe there's a little bit of that at play in Kakushigoto, and so him finally learning to let go of that and accept that his daughter has grown up is it is effective storytelling for what it is.
Yeah, despite it being rushed, I feel like it hit, like, the emotional beats good. It was a good ending. I guess next time we'll talk more about where we fit Kakushigoto into the picture of what is the best anime.
Where it fits in the dad anime canon.
Also, yes,
where does it fit in the dad anime pantheon? So we'll talk more about that later. All right, and one more thing we wanted to mention is Great Pretender, which has dumped a lot more episodes, but we watched up to episode 5, which is the first arc, the LA job.
Yeah.
And we'll count that as part of this season, and we'll talk about the rest of the show next season, I guess. But this might be the only good thing we'll be watching at that point.
Oh, Great Pretender is so good. It is.
But at least the show is very, very good.
I cannot wait to get to episode 6, because as I've been saying in our Discord, the Great Pretender is giving me super strong Lupin the Third Part 5 energy, like.
Yeah.
In the sense of, like, not just like in terms of like, it's a heist anime and there's capers and hijinks, but also we have no clue what to expect from it. Like,
right.
Because there's a version of episode 5, and I'll keep this pretty vague so as not to spoil Aqua here, but like, there's a version of episode 5 that immediately tells us what episode 6 onward looks like. The ending episode 5 actually chooses to go with throws that all into question in a really interesting way, right? Because, like, there's a version of episode 5 where you're like, oh, all right, this is like, this is the Fast 5 of Great Pretender, where now, like, the crew has been formed.
Music sting, everyone walks off into the sunset for the next job.
Yeah, but the thing they do instead, and again, I'll keep it vague, but that has me going, oh, where is this going? Like, where do they plan to go with this down the line? Because, like, it's like when we were watching Lupin, Part 5, right? And, like, after the first big arc where, Lupin robs Bitcoin, and, like, then it cuts to, like, a one-episode Red Jacket Lupin, like, breather episode, and we were all like, wait, what is this show doing, right? Like, it's that kind of feeling, and that's super exciting.
It's fun to not have something that's an unknown.
Yeah.
Like, even a lot of the shows we're enjoying are adaptations of things, and so, like, if you are willing to put the work in, like, that information is out there on some level, even if there's variance in how it's being adapted, but good, honest, proper, like, anime original that's good. It's always fun to see.
Definitely.
Have that possibility open.
And even just the premise of the show, like, since everybody's a con man, you don't know...
Right. You
don't always know what information you should be trusting. Right. I mean, a lot of times you can see when they're going to flip it around.
I mean, yes, definitely. I think that...
But I think especially with the main guy, because... Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he just using the good guy? When is he just using the good guy act to his advantage, or when is he legitimately being Mr. Hero of Justice, like they play around with that to keep you on your toes, right?
Right. I mean, I think it's the thing that they do with the best con and heist stories, kind of lean into less the ambiguous morality of its characters, but more the ambiguous sincerity and intentions of those characters, because it is in those specifics where they can really kind of muddy the waters, right? Make things, leave us in the dark, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, it's just interesting because the way they use that, because like him kind of acting like a dork sometimes makes everybody's guard go down, right?
Yeah,
like that kind
and
of thing.
and I think it's like the bet like the best lies, right? Like the best actors, there's a hint of truth to it, right? Like Makoto is kind of a dork, right? Like
right,
like that's not a he definitely leans into it when he needs to, but also like
he still is, but
yeah, he is still kind of
he can
a goof.
use it to his he can use it to his advantage sometimes, right? And that's where it
Right.
becomes kind of interesting. But
Yeah, totally.
yeah, it's real good. They're going to Singapore next.
Oh, are
That'll
they? Damn.
Yeah, that's the next arc.
Okay, I didn't even look that up.
So
okay.
Netflix has been dropping like the whole arc at a time, is what it
Yeah.
looks like. So like 2 weeks ago they dropped the Singapore arc, and then this week they dropped the London
Oh,
arc.
I guess the blurb Artemis read last time did say L.A., Singapore, and London.
Right,
Oh,
yeah, it was in
yeah,
the
that
description.
absurd
So
blurb that
it's
she read.
right. Yeah, so that's where they're going, and I think
see. Interesting.
so from what we were piecing together, there's going to be more after that, but we don't know when. But for the
I
time
will.
being,
That's a shame. I will miss Anime LA. I feel
Yeah.
like I was ready for a whole show set in Anime LA. I feel like they did a great job of nailing the vibe. I will miss In-Z Out.
yeah,
I will miss the Hollywood dirtbaggery, but
I feel like it worked really well with the city pop art and all that
yeah,
too. Like,
yeah, really fantastic. I mean, yeah.
I just hope it's Wit Studio. I hope they can hold it together.
I hope they can keep it up. Yeah.
Maybe being the
They got
Netflix
their
thing lets
Netflix
them.
money, yeah.
Yeah, maybe this being a Netflix thing that does not adhere to normal time schedules will help them keep their act together. But we'll see. Episode 1 through 5 it was
Really
great across
good,
the board,
so,
though. In all categories.
Mm-hmm.
So at the very least, this show can be our savior for what we're about to bear witness to.
Also, I'm gonna get one last jab in. One last jab into Iro here, because he was lamenting about his Sadamoto waifu being a cop. And,
yes.
Trades were made. One thing was given and one thing was taken away. Iro must decide if that is an acceptable trade.
I think you called that one too, G, didn't you?
I did.
So you're 2 for 2.
Look,
this week.
as dumb as those movies are, I'm a big fan of the Fast and Furious movies, and they kind of, that and Great Pretender maybe operate in similar strokes in some regards. So,
Right. Well, one of the main jokes is the bad action movie franchise, right?
yes, Die Hot.
Yeah, Die Hot. So, all right. So we'll pick that back up later. Let's move along and get into the.
Man, this has been a great season preview podcast.
Well,
Only 40 minutes
time to-
in, we will start
time to-
talking about the new season.
Time to dive
rest of this
headfirst
is-
into the garbage.
the rest of this is probably going to go pretty quick. So
So you say.
Yes, summer 2020 is what we're looking at. I'd wanted to mention some of the things returning first. A lot of these we don't even really need to talk about too much. I just want to mention them
I
as
almost
points
go
of
as far as
interest.
say, like, Jail, you could just read these all off a list, and we could just pick the ones we consider even worth
Yes,
talking about.
stop me if there's something you want to say about them. But we had Fruits Basket, which I think actually came back already. It was delayed, and that's going to be going on into next season. Fire Force is coming back.
With no more Yukiyase, so you have absolutely zero reason to watch that show.
What was that even?
Well,
Here's the director.
Oh,
Okay. I mean, yeah, look, if nothing else, Fire Force Season 1 did look good at times. So, like, that is unfortunate then if they lost the force behind that.
Yeah. ReZero is coming back for some reason.
It's gonna make some people on the internet very happy.
Is it called ReZero?
I don't know if it has a weird subtitle or something. I don't think it does, but
Is
I
it
felt
starting
like
life again in another world? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess what little I know, I didn't watch the show, but from what I understood, it had an actual conclusion, so I don't know why to bring it back. But
I mean, as far as I know, that thing like started and ended.
Well,
Right.
seeing as none of us watched it, I feel we could probably just move on anyway.
Yes.
We already
So-
watched season 2 of ReZero. It was called Grand Belm.
Sword Art Online's finally coming back. That had got postponed last season, so that'll be in July.
This is
The
the second half of the
Alicization.
year of Kirito.
We have exhausted the Sword Art Online discourse. Let's
Yep.
move on.
My teen romantic comedy SNAFU, which we actually talked about last time because it was supposed to air last season, but that got bumped. That's actually coming back.
Sure.
Then No Guns Life 2, which got bumped.
Yeah, this is
That's one we're actually
well,
kind of
mildly-
interested in.
yes. Look, look in a post Dorohedoro post like Azoken post like It Invaded World, like No Guns to Life probably doesn't.
Are you honestly mentioning that one alongside these prior two?
Invader was alright.
Yes. Look, Aqua, you might not. You better get ready because come end of year, I will legitimately be bringing It Invaded to the table. Like I will be fighting
Go ahead.
hard for It Invaded. Y'all don't even begin to understand how much I truly love that show. What is it? It's not. Was it? He's entering Terminal Dogma. No, that's not what it was. It was.
I don't even remember, dude.
Oh man, right when he
Sorry.
like double dives into the Idwell.
I
What did
yield,
they call
I
it?
yield my time.
But anyways, my point is that No Guns Life is probably it occupies a similar tier of that kind of like schlocky entertainment show, and in a weird ways, it would not have maybe held up well to scrutiny last season. Maybe this season it will be an appreciated salve in these times.
In the dry desert of
Yeah, I mean,
good anime, it'll have more time to shine.
Like, even at its worst, even at its absolute worst, it is still about a man with a gun for a head who solves crime. So,
Right.
So a cop.
fuck.
Jeez, he's a private detective.
Okay. He's not. We can't defund him
not
because
with
he's a
law
private
enforcement.
detective.
Also, he doesn't
Right.
really like cops anyway, so.
The
There
cops
you go.
hate him.
I mean, yes, the cops fucking hate him, so.
Well, who do the cops like? Let's not answer that
Does that
question.
mean Gunman is black?
Anyway, also coming back after being postponed at episode 2 or 3, I forget, The Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited, which I would have been interested in.
Great Pretender
But-
had eaten the
Right,
front
speaking of
Yeah.
shows that now look worse in hindsight because of new things that have come out
Ah,
since then.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Yeah, Great
Man.
Pretender basically beats the show up and takes its lunch money.
Yeah,
like I know they're different plots and stuff, but they're kind of going for the same
I mean,
vibe,
yes,
right?
they're
Like,
cut from the same cloth. Even if one is about law enforcement and the other is about criminals, they're definitely leaning into the same like slick, stylish people who like operate above the law, right?
Use
like,
lots of money.
yeah.
and with unlimited
And
resources,
who
right?
drag a like generic
Right, a hapless
Twinkie
everyman
boy.
along the way. Right.
Yeah.
But even that part, right? Like the hapless everyman in Great Pretender is a real motherfucking pimp. Like, like Makoto's a dork, but also that motherfucker hustles. He makes moves, man. Like that episode where he where he meets with the director on his own. That's a great episode, man. That motherfucker hustles. This dude in Millionaire Detective, he's just a cop.
just a dork.
He's just
Yeah.
a cop.
He's just an actual cop, right?
Yeah.
So,
The Virgin Millionaire Detective versus the Chat. Great Pretender.
Con man, yeah.
yeah. So again, though, given our options, I still may watch a little bit of it at least.
Sure.
Well, speaking of
But-
shows, we may consider giving a couple more episodes.
Yeah, oof.
Oh yes, and Appare Ranman's coming back, which I completely forgot existed again.
Yeah.
Yup.
And we'll probably, I don't know, guys.
They might get to the race.
Oh boy.
They might finally get to the race.
But how many episodes of this did air?
4?
3, I think?
Oh, okay.
I think
Yeah.
it was 3 or 4. Yeah.
Enough to where they should have gotten to the race.
Yes, they should have gotten to the race by now.
So that's coming back, and no word on Dino.
Alas.
That's okay.
That's such a heavy live action component that I think.
I mean, he burned the diary.
It's true.
Dino is never coming back. It has been
timeline
erased
ended.
from existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure in some other timeline somewhere, Dino is continuing on, but not this one, unfortunately.
What if it just continues on like variety shows with comedians, and then like
it's not.
Shota Aoi and Dino show up?
Oh God!
Good.
Oh God! All right. So there's probably more stuff coming back. I can't keep track of.
Kamen Rider, Super Sentai, Digimon Adventure.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, I mean other anime too, but it's hard to keep track of where everything's at. I'll probably just post the one of the lists going around.
In a couple of weeks, we'll be able to tell you if Kamen Rider filmed with social distancing measures put in place is either hilarious or hilariously depressing.
If they have the helmets on, it's okay, right?
I
Yeah,
guess.
but like they sort of said, like they can't do as much like wire stuff because technicians can't be close to each other.
Oh wait, right. You gotta have people.
Sounds
around,
like
right.
This next Kamen Rider should just get a gun.
they're just gonna do it all over Zoom.
Just shoot people.
They're all just gonna be in a Zoom meeting for 25
The
minutes.
funny thing
I mean,
is,
they
you
already
know what the
used-
next Kamen Rider will be called?
Right, it's Kamen Rider Saber, right?
Yeah, Kamen Rider Saber. So it's the opposite of a gun.
Great. Oh no! Let's be real. It's Kamen Rider. That doesn't preclude a sword that transforms into a gun.
Yeah,
Let's
I
be
mean,
real
a Kamen
here.
Rider will always have a gun, even a Kamen
Right.
Rider called Saber. Like,
Right. All right. I actually do want to hear how that goes, but we'll have to wait until
Yeah.
we
Well,
come back.
let's get into the real meat of this podcast.
Coming up
the
next
dessert,
All right.
season.
All right.
the thing
So-
you've all been waiting for.
When we told you guys next season looks bad, we really meant it. Like we say that a lot. We really meant it on this one.
Yeah, maybe this is like a boy who cried wolf
Yeah.
thing. Like we might have condemned a lot of seasons in the past. So you might just be like, oh, these guys just they're always so negative, and then inevitably they always find those like 2 or 3 shows they love anyways.
yeah,
I'm
because
saying,
at the end of next season, we're just gonna be this season was terrible, but there were a couple of good shows. Like,
but this season in particular, my guys, please, if you care at all about what we have to say, listen to us here. No, you know,
Yeah.
I will admit, in this whole list, there are like a couple shows here that have the potential to be pretty solid. We're not like saying it's.
I mean, I'd say there's even one that has the potential to be absolutely fantastic.
You know, it is not a complete wasteland. It's
Yeah.
just the depths to which the anime this season sink to is.
I think the percentage of because I feel like the last couple for a while now, there's only been like a couple really bad shows and then like a lot of mediocre shows. And then like a couple good shows, and this season just feels like every show is bad except for like 1 or 2, and then you pile on top of it. There's not that many to begin with. Like a lot of these shows we normally wouldn't even talk about, but there's literally nothing else to talk about
Yeah.
because there's so few shows to.
Yeah, like the first tier on our
Airing.
list is a show I never thought we would ever. Is not the
All
tier
right.
of show I thought we would ever bring up in a podcast.
So
like
let's.
this.
A moment of silence for the joke of the year.
Okay. Are you talking about the title of this show?
Of course.
Okay, so, alright. I'm actually going to kind of enjoy this, if we're going to be honest, secretly,
Right.
but... Because just going into these terrible, terrible shows. But we start off with a real banger here. Dokyuu Hentai Heroes, except Heroes is spelled capital H, cross, Eros.
Get it?
So that it also covers
it?
hentai and
Get it?
Eros.
And it's hentai instead of sentai because they're a team of superheroes, but they're also pervy.
I fucking hate
Yes.
Japanese wordplay. I fucking
So-
hate Japanese wordplay so much
It's like
right now.
it's like yes, so it kind of has a little bit of a Super Sentai vibe, except in this case the monsters. I dug a little deeper into it. The monsters apparently are like censorship bugs or something like that, and they feed off of everyone's H energy. So this team of heroes, which consists of one dude and his harem of schoolgirls, are
How original.
have to combat them, and their clothes fly off and all that stuff like that.
Yeah, I checked out the manga for this because I had nothing better to do, and there was no first chapter, so I just read the latest chapter, which is the beach episode. And it's like, oh no, we are getting attacked by alien worms that look like...
Yeah.
And, oh no, they can squirt water,
So,
and it dissolves our clothes, and...
alright, so I don't think we need to...
It's just boring.
Yeah, so not a whole lot more to say about that
The,
one.
the
other
only
than-
the only thing I will say is that y'all remember, like, there was this time period in, like, Western media where anytime they, like, tried to parody anime,
It would
be like-
exactly this type of thing.
yeah, it would be
Yes.
like, it would be like big boob, paradise, pervert, penis, dick,
Tentacle man.
boobs, tentacle
Right.
land, right? And like, you know, like that's what that was like the tier of satire American humor was working on at the time. Like, oh, anime is boobs, and
well,
I you know, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of us always kind of bristled at that because I was like there's such a thing as a good anime parody and a bad anime parody, right? And I think that, like, we've gotten past that era now because now most of the people making cartoons are also weebs themselves, so instead we get good anime, like, you know, tributes. But,
right.
you know, there was that period where it was just like, haha, anime, it's all pervs and shit. And
It's all tentacles.
and you
right.
know, of course, we anime fans want to be like, no, of course anime's not all that. And then something like Dokyuu
anime
HxEros
makes this.
Heroes
Yes.
comes out, and I'm like, okay, actually, yeah, maybe anime is all this after all.
Yep. Well, speaking of things that sound like parody,
You gotta do this in one take.
the next show on our list is I
One
can't do it.
breath, Joe.
I can't do
Want me to
this.
do
The
it?
Misfit
No,
is
no,
Demon
I'll-
King Academy history strongest Demon King reincarnates and goes to school with his descendants.
Yes. So
Awesome.
the title says it all. It is the Misfit of the Demon King Academy getting reincarnated, and he goes to school with his descendants in the future. It's exactly what you think it is.
Yep.
The
It's not
main guy.
isekai.
The main guy. It's
Isn't it?
close.
I mean,
Well,
it's close enough.
reincarnation is like
It's not.
He's reincarnated 2,000 years later. It might as well be a new.
Yeah.
So, like, it's
I mean,
not.
like,
It's not isekai, but this isekai adjacent subgenre has emerged
Yeah.
lately.
The Demon King
Well,
subgenre.
not just the Demon King subgenre, but specifically the, like, reincarnation / like, went to the future or whatever thing.
JRPG fantasy world.
And you
like-
have the secret lost knowledge and, like, oh, magic's gotten worse, so my regular magic is way
my ancient
stronger,
magic is way more
baby,
powerful.
et
That's my
cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera.
right.
But
you mean
But
old
you see,
times are better.
Iro, because he uses the old magic, the people at school do not trust him and they ostracize him.
Oh,
and they
so he's
call
secretly-
him the worst.
So he's
even
the-
though he is the best.
Okay.
secretly the best.
Awesome.
He also looks like a two-player Kirito. He's a white coat.
He looks like the
Kirito.
love child of Kirito and Reen Schwarzer from Trails from Cold Steel.
Sure.
The only good thing about this entire thing is, if you watch the trailer, the final shot shows him as a baby and his parents swaddling him, and he just starts talking like a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Okay, that's all right.
But you know, not worth the one joke.
Once again, I've read the first chapter of the manga, and in it he like goes to the fighting entrance exam for the Demon King Academy, and he like fights this dude and kills him with a single flick of his fingers, and it's like, oh, why are you angry that I killed this guy? Isn't it normal in this era that you can just bring people back to life with magic? And then he like brings him back to life and kills him again, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, and this is originally a light novel, so I guess
yeah.
they made a manga adaptation. In case there was any doubt that this was originally a light novel, but
No,
all right.
No, you have like a tier worse than light novel. Like, what if this was a web novel?
And most of
God,
those light
Well-
novels are web novels. So.
Yeah.
We'll talk about webtoons in a minute.
This is
but,
just that scene from Girlish Number.
All
Yeah,
right,
let's-
what about this next one here? Because
Yeah.
I'm looking at Anna chart and it doesn't even have a summary.
So I did the research on this one. This is another multimedia idol project
Yeah.
thing.
Okay.
I think they're going for the Bang Dream
What's this
thing
one
where there's
called?
like,
There's like multiple.
oh yes,
Yeah.
I guess it actually needs a name. Lapis Re lights with all the capitalization and
Relights
punctuation you'd
into
expect in there.
dreams.
Yeah.
A sequel
Yeah.
you never knew you wanted.
Is it also a
yeah.
rhythm game?
I don't know.
It's not a game yet. I
this
think it's
is-
going to be an anime first, but they
Yeah.
said they are going to do the game. But they're doing the Bang Dream thing where it's like multiple groups instead of just like one.
like a gazillion girls who all go to the same school,
Right.
and they're like, and this will
But they all are in different
probably be
subgroups.
incredibly popular, and people are gonna be angry at us for dismissing it. But
The bubble's got to burst on this at some point, right? People can only play so many idol gacha games, right? Right?
I don't know, man.
look, you say this, but you started playing Arknights.
No, actually, I'm the one who started playing Arknights.
I play a lot of gacha games, but I play them for a little bit and then I move on to the next one. I'm only ever really playing Grand Blue Fantasy.
Also, Arknights is all right.
And Arknights is pretty good, actually.
have good
Arknights
art.
is the one good one. Why don't you listen to me? It's not like other gacha games.
It isn't in some regards.
Well,
they
I'm
wear
not just talking.
reasonable
I'm not just talking about
outfits.
the games. I'm not just talking about the game aspect, but like also just the whole idol group thing. Like, I
don't think. I mean,
how
I
many
think
times?
Yeah, I think.
How many times can they keep doing it?
I mean,
is
as
all
many
I'm
times as
saying.
they think it's gonna sell, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, this is. It's not just anime, right? It's every medium. It's every industry, right? Something blows up, gets popular. Everybody tries to emulate it for years and years afterwards. Like, look, to get into video games, we just watched, like, some game streams from, like, Sony and EA, and surprise, surprise, it's a lot of people just chasing the same old trends. And, of course, you say, like, there's no way this is going to do well, but apparently some dude in a suit does, so...
Yeah.
And it just seems
so.
completely arbitrary which of these ones are hits and which are not. Like,
Yeah, because not all of them are successful,
Yeah.
right?
No, like,
So
yeah, some of them
it's-
fail. Some of them do genuinely, like, disappear and are never heard from ever again. And sometimes it's just, I think it literally, like, again, I continue to wonder why Love Live is the one that, like, eclipsed Idolmaster, right? I'm like, why was that the one that
Right.
blew up? And it's just like, I feel like it's just a flip of a coin on some level, so...
Panning for gold.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Let's get
Well,
to,
let's move on to the other big webtoon Crunchyroll has been developing. We had Tower of God for spring season, and this next season they're going to be doing The God of High School, which, like we
it
said,
sounds
is
like
another
an
Korean-
80s rom-com. Like a John Hughes movie, The God of High
It's
School.
another right. So it is another Korean webtoon that is being adapted under the Crunchyroll Originals umbrella. This one's actually being done by Mappa, which is interesting.
Right, the only
I guess.
reason I will pay any attention to this whatsoever is because Sung Hoo Park is directing.
yes, so the most notable thing about this, as Zero said, is there's a fair bit of talent behind this one, actually.
Yeah.
It's, and I mean, as resident GLORIO fight guy, I will say that watching the PV, the most notable thing about it is, as sad as it is to say, in 2020, the fights are 2D animated, and
Yeah.
they look pretty solid. Like it's Sung Ho Park, of Garo Vanishing Line and Garo the Divine Flame, Fame.
Quote unquote fame.
Well, Fame,
Fame among
yes,
us.
for me, among us.
Fame among the GLORIO blog.
Master of the drifting horses and doing sick wheelies with your magical motorcycle and punching bullets, Fame. But yeah, and so yeah, it does look good, and I guess it's hard to tell. Like, the thing that's hard to tell is like, is this like a particularly well-funded project? Like, is Crunchyroll really like throwing a lot behind this? Because it's hard to tell. Like, is this like some like weirdly high budget production or what? But
Because this is like G Gundam. Like, this is like a tournament with weird
Yeah, I don't even know if this-
stereotypes from all over the world having
I don't even know if
fights.
this show has a plot. I
Yeah.
think it's just everybody fighting in this high school to see who's the strongest.
Right. I mean, and that's a very that's a very classic premise for these sorts of things, right? I mean, this is the obligatory section where I complain that this is getting like the Mappa Sungho Park treatment when both Kengan Azura and Baki the Grappler got anime recently, and both of them had to resort to using CG for the fights.
Right.
And in some regards, it's understandable because those two, along with the God of High School, I assume anyways, these sorts of like seinen fight manga that are slightly different from battle shonen, but are more like, if not quite martial arts, but like...
I'm pretty sure this is like 100% battle shonen, though.
Well, okay, so the thing I'm trying to like explain is that there's like a
I don't think there's gonna be anybody like
real life based martial arts and not
right, like there's a
magic.
holistic difference in fighting manga between the the pure battle shonens, which are like, you know, kind of their own flavor, and then you have fight manga along the lines of like Baki the Grappler, Kengan Azura, that are, you know, again, not remotely realistic. Again, like fucking. I'm not going to even get into it, but there's some... In Kengan Azura, there's a death match between a sumo wrestler and a pro wrestler, and it's fucking fantastic. And it has the amazing line, pro wrestling is a three-dimensional fighting combat style.
Baki has, like, people ripping out optic nerves and
right,
stuff like
Baki the Grappler literally has, like, a dude who shows off how badass he is by sticking a gun in his mouth and pulling the trigger, and coming out of it completely unfazed. Like, they're not realistic at all, but like they are quote unquote ostensibly about like martial arts, right?
Actual martial arts,
right?
Yeah.
Quote unquote, yes, and they, because of that, right? They cannot get away with the energy waves or like the laser beams generally. And so I get why they are animated in CG nowadays, because doing actual hand-to-hand combat is really expensive and very difficult. And so when I see something like the God of High School that seems to be entirely animated in 2D, I'm like, how much are they throwing behind this thing? Like, is this thing super popular?
This thing does eventually end up in like shooting lasers territory.
Oh,
I mean, the picture I'm looking at, the guy's got fire coming off his feet, so,
I mean, that can always be, like, you know, fucking representative.
Metaphorical fire.
Metaphorical fire. You see, but the Hadouken is not real fire, it is just this metaphorically rendered fighting spirit.
I don't know the first thing about this thing other than the PV I watched, which seemed to be purely hand-to-hand combat. And so, like... I don't know. Is this another Tower of... What's the other one called? Tower of God?
Oh, no. I don't think it's going to be like that. Because Tower of God... Apparently that went all over the place. I only watched the first episode.
Right, but what I mean is that, like, is this also absurdly popular? Like, is this one of those,
This and Tower of God were, like, the big two.
Okay, so...
Yeah. I think this is going to be a big hit.
Okay,
but,
so there is reason for them to want to invest so much into this, potentially.
Right.
I mean, even though this one is more... I think this one is more explicitly Korean, whereas Tower of God is just like... Yeah, but it's like generic fantasy world.
Well, this actually takes place
in Korea with
I mean,
Korean people fighting for the honor of Taekwondo. Like,
oh man, that's super interesting actually, because like, I don't mean to turn this into a big long tangent, but there has been not a worrying trend, but fans of the genre have noted the like weird, shall we say, like, uptick in, like, nationalist undertones in seinen fighting manga as of late. Sure. Like, in these sorts of international tournaments, karate is always the strongest fighting style. Like, the dirty gaijin who use their dirty gaijin sports, like MMA and boxing and wrestling, are all, like, bewildered and awestruck by the purity of Japanese Nippon karate and how it is the strongest style. And every time they fight,
meanwhile, Aikido just standing in the corner there.
and then it's like, every time they fight like a Chinese or a Thai or a Korean martial artist, they always make sure to like have some like big like 2-panel spread of the Japanese karate dude like just completely obliterating them with some like huge statement in giant text of like, never underestimate the Japanese spirit, or nothing compares to Japan. And You know, you're like,
Are
I
we
wonder...
just gonna get the Korean edition?
Right,
to
so
that?
are we
Is
just
that
gonna get
what
some
we're
right? So
questioning?
I'm not saying it's good if they do that again, but just with Taekwondo. But yes, I'm very curious if we're just gonna get the Korean version of that, of just Taekwondo schooling on karate and kung fu.
Right. Well, I know for me personally, I don't know. It's going to take more than just cool action scenes to keep me interested in a show. So if that's all they got, I mean that's probably going to be fine for some people. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's the ceiling for this show. I don't see
Right.
it getting
Yeah.
into much else than that.
I will say one other
But,
thing. Like this usually doesn't bother me. I don't like how red their noses are.
Yeah,
Their noses are
it's
very
like everybody's
red. Like
everybody took a shot before the.
yeah, like
They're like,
Like,
cartoon
everybody-
drunk.
like it's just a little too much. Like I'm not one of those like Tumblr nose guys, but it's like
Yeah.
it's just a little distracting. It's a little distracting how red their noses are. That's all.
Maybe it's a cold in the arena. I don't
Maybe.
know, but.
That's all.
All
I
right,
got.
well, that's one of the shows on here that might not be absolutely terrible.
I mean, it probably is. Let's be real, but it might have cool
yeah.
fight scenes.
At the very least, we might get some cool animation out of it.
Someone
I
might
mean,
punch a
we already
bullet.
have seen it.
Maybe.
So, nobody's gonna punch a bullet. I'm gonna call it now.
Aw.
All right. So let's move along then to the
Other show that
only-
might be okay this season.
only show that has some potential here. We're talking about. How do you actually say this? Is it just decadence?
I just say
Decadence,
Decadence.
Decadence.
Yeah.
Like decadence.
Wow.
But with a hyphen in the middle.
Oh, HxEros.
Japanese
So
wordplay.
So I think we're mostly interested in this because this show actually has a little bit of pedigree to it,
Yes.
right? Like,
Yes. Yuzuru Tachikawa.
Yuzuru Tachikawa, it is the director of Death Parade and Mob Psycho 100.
Shows
Yes.
that were
Is,
very well animated.
Pomodoros finally doing character designs for a show that is not terrible. He's the guy who did the character designs
Well,
for
don't
listeners.
count your chickens before they hatch, sir.
Yeah.
so
It is studio, and the studio is called Nut.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's yeah. It's,
well, the studio, because I did look up. Their only other thing was the
Tanya the Evil,
right,
which did look
but-
good despite being Nazi propaganda.
But I mean, yeah, the studio being slightly less important than the actual staff, who are mostly coming from Bones, like we're saying,
Yeah.
doing Death Parade and Mob Psycho.
Death Parade was Madhouse, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
That was Madhouse.
so really, it is just the director we're kind of talking.
So it's just the
about here.
director then. Okay, yeah. But yeah, I did love Death Parade. But this is and I like Mob Psycho too. But the this particular show. So I guess it's sort of like a post-apocalyptic thing where you
Did
got your
somebody
humans
say
holed up in a fortress.
Sunrise original mecha anime?
It definitely has that.
Well,
vibe,
it reminds.
but
The premise and the way people are flying around reminds me of Attack on Titan,
actually,
but
yes, I have to admit, I definitely got a little bit of those vibes in
because they're all holed up in this like flying city thing, and the way they fight looks very much like Attack on Titan, where they're kind of flying through the air with their gear on or whatever. The actual tone of it, based on the trailer, though, seems a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
than-
mean, this definitely gives me the vibe of like. It's funny because I think there's a lot of shows we could list that kind of remind us, like, this does kind of remind me of Attack on Titan. It does remind me a little bit of, maybe even Made in Abyss, right? Like, kind of a similar
Yeah.
vibe of like, oh, a character goes on an adventure to uncover the truth of blah blah blah, whatever, right? Like,
Right.
but yeah, it also kind of, I almost get a little bit of like not full on, but slight Studio Ghibli vibes of like. There's a little bit of a whimsy to what we have seen so far.
It is
right? A
like
little bit of
quirky
that.
Right.
girl teams up with grumpy dude. Like,
Yeah, yes. There's a little bit of
Right.
that like childlike whimsy to it that I think works in its favor because I think this definitely does give me that kind of like kid goes on an adventure anime vibes.
Right.
But,
And I mean, it's an original, so we don't really know too much more
right,
beyond
that's the
that.
other
but
thing, right?
It looks pretty good. I mean, watching the trailer, like the animation's pretty good, solid, and I like that tone a lot more than if they were taking this, the dark, serious,
Right.
post-apocalyptic route.
I mean, look, let's be real. There's no guarantee it doesn't do that later.
Right, or that's going to be the mid-season turn or something, right?
But
yeah, I mean,
What if the
we don't.
Decadents were actually human?
Oh shit.
All we're saying is that the show has potential.
yes, it has a strong
and
director.
it's probably a coin flip whether it's going to be actually good or not.
I mean, right. I mean, look, I feel like everything we're saying now, we could have also been saying about, say, Appare Ranman like 3 months
We
ago.
probably did
so,
say about Appare
like,
Ranman.
Appare
Right?
Ranman did not have a director of the level of Yuzuru Tashikawa.
not of this tier. No,
Like,
definitely
yeah.
not. I just mean like the inventiveness of the setting and the premise.
Yeah.
But
Right.
definitely. This, along with Great Pretender, are like maybe the two that I mean, prior to Great Pretender coming out, though, I think we were mostly betting on. I'd say, like,
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully they'll pull it off. Because man, we need something here.
yeah. I mean, we need something
Alright.
weekly because, like, we can't do weekly coverage of Great Pretender. So, like,
Right, because that's already out.
we need at least
Yeah.
one show we could talk about every week of the podcast.
How
Yeah.
about Uzaki-chan wants to hang out?
Well, I can tell you it's probably not going to be this one.
Oh, you mean the new, like, 4chan flavor of the month manga?
Guys, what if Takagi-san had huge knockers?
That's pretty
Okay,
much.
tell me
Yep,
more.
that's
And it's
basically-
not even. But it's not even like because Takagi-san works because it's kind of like cute and charming and nostalgic.
Yeah.
There's none of that going on here. At
This
least
is
from
just,
what I was.
this huge bazongas lady
I
wants
mean,
to bang
the
you.
fact that this summary has to specifically say, but Uzaki Hana, his boisterous, well-endowed underclassman, has other plans. It's like you
Right,
could have
and if
just,
you-
said boisterous. You didn't have to throw in the well-endowed part.
I mean, if you watch the trailer, that's at least 50% of the focus of the trailer is on the beach balls strapped to her chest. And like to make it even worse, like so I guess this is supposed to be like in college, but
Yeah.
she
Yes.
looks like she's 12 and has like again the beach balls strapped
Look,
to her
once
chest that
again,
don't make any
like,
sense.
The thing this manga was best known for was that it was like used for a promotion for donating blood by the Red Cross.
Oh yeah, I
And people
remember
got
that.
pissed off because like, why are you drawing this like ridiculous boob monster?
Oh, that was
on the
this
Red
one,
Cross
huh?
poster? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
this one.
I remember this.
Oh yeah. Oh god. So I think that what is the trailer is like what is it, like a minute long or something like that? I don't have it in front of me. I almost didn't make it through the entire trailer because not even just because of the what was going on screen, but like the actual voice acting was so annoying
Oh
because
wow, man, that's
she was just like it was just they were just so obnoxious and like so like while the premise may sound like Takagi-san, I was not picking up.
I mean,
any
in
of,
essence,
like,
it's
the,
nothing alike, right? Like
Yeah.
when
the
Takagi-
charm of
Because
it or anything.
there are a
like-
lot of manga out there nowadays that are basically like the Takagi-san thing of, you have our main character who's being teased and flirted with by this one girl who can't tell him that she's head
Cute-
over heels for
cute
him.
girl and eggs lame guy.
Yeah,
I mean, there's
but
that
like,
other
the
one.
thing with
minutes.
Takagi-san is it works because it's so like
Because
innocent.
they're young.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's
Whereas
not even just that
every
they're
other
kids, but I
of
think
these
it's
is
also-
like, but this time Takagi-san has huge boobs, or this time Takagi-san is an older office lady, or this time Takagi-san is like a tan bully who beats the fuck out of main character.
Yeah, I was about to
and
say,
then
when's
laughs
that
at
one
him.
getting it? When's Nagatoro getting an anime? Because I feel like it's only a matter of time. I mean,
Yeah.
as somebody who's familiar with that artist back when he was doing like cock and ball torture, porn,
Yeah.
like it's really interesting to kind of see the arc that Nagatoro has taken since those early days of like true, actual, legitimate physical abuse to now just very vanilla teasing. But anyways, point is, I feel like we're gonna see a lot more of these
Thanks, Angie.
anime down the line. So
Yeah. Can't beat the original.
I will say, like, I don't mean, look, this is not the worst fucking thing on this list, right? When you were comparing it to fucking, what was that, Super Hentai Heroes, or...
No, if we're grading
whatever,
on a... If we're grading on a curve...
One more thing. People do not realize that the strength of Takagi-san is not Takagi, it's Nishikata.
Right, Nishikata is, like, the perfect fuckboy protagonist for that kind of story.
Right.
But yeah, speaking of like shows that are probably worse than the one we just talked about.
All right, so let's talk about Rent a Girlfriend.
Oh boy,
awesome!
Okay, so I think from what I was looking into this might be loosely, or at least the concept of this might be loosely based on the real thing where you can rent
it
like,
is.
people.
It is. Like you have like young women who rent themselves out to like hang out.
No, not even that, but like where you can like rent like family members or like rent.
Like you've played Yakuza, you know that's of course where Kiryu has to play the girl's boyfriend. This is
that was like, Majima. That was Majima.
Is it Majima? All right, yeah, it is Majima. Yeah, so
told my dad
that is a real
my boyfriend is a tall, slender man with an eye patch and a ponytail and an aura not unlike that of a knife's edge.
That is a real thing that exists, and I think that's what this is getting the idea from.
Yes.
But in practice, what it turns into is this loser guy renting a girlfriend, and then it causes other problems with other girls. And
so the whole thing is that like there's loser guy and his girlfriend has just broken up with him, and he can't stand the idea of her being with another man, so he does this rent a girlfriend service, and then he goes on a date with the girl, but then he finds out that it's fake, and the girl is just acting. She's not really his girlfriend.
Wait. He's surprised by that? I thought he went in knowing that.
So he leaves a 1-star like review on her like rent the girlfriend Uber service
that's
thing,
a fucking
whatever.
Dick move.
Yeah, and she just gets super pissed off at him, and is like, "Oh, but so you're actually like a mean bitch and not a sweet girlfriend. I'm gonna give you even more 1-star reviews."
What the fuck do you expect? What the fuck do you expect from a girlfriend rental service?
You paid
what
for
are you?
Right?
But then it turns out that his family approves of her and thinks she's his actual girlfriend, and wacky hijinks and stuff.
All right, let's
oh god, I'm getting angrier at every word.
All right,
let's
be real. All right, are any of us gonna watch this? Are any of us gonna watch even one episode of this? No,
I have to say one thing. The art in the manga is really quite charming. Like there's a lot of like funny, goofy faces, fun of like cartoony stuff that could render itself very well to being animated. But like the main character is such an entitled dick that it is like there has been a recent upturn. Like the harem manga is returning. Like you had like the Weekend Study, Pokuben, and the quintessential quintuplets. So like harem manga is making a comeback, but it's like
wait, those are two different shows?
Yeah, yes. So
just like
the same show.
Just like nature,
oh, that's right.
Harem anime is healing, is recovering.
Yeah, harem mangas, but it's wholesome this time because you know everyone's friends and there's no big deal that we're all in love with the same dude.
We keep saying like the old pre-isekai harem anime feels wholesome compared to isekai went.
This is trying to be that, but like main character is such a like asshole, like, and
there's still a lot of
that might be the point, but at this point, like. This genre is saturated with, like, entitled dickweed protagonists, and if you never, like, point it out, or, like, never give him comeuppance for being a dickweed, then it doesn't work. Like, you can't say, oh, yeah, but he's supposed to be a dickweed because he's gonna have character development, and in 100 chapters he will be the guy worthy of this girl's love.
You can't do the Onani Master Kurosawa unless you actually redeem them. They must go through the lowest emotional depths. They must endure the harshest.
They must pay for their crimes.
They must pay for their crimes to be redeemed.
I was gonna say a good example of this is the game Tales of the Abyss, where the main character is also a complete irredeemable
dude.
asshole.
I ain't gonna lie, I played Tales of the Abyss. I dropped that game because that dude's such a fucking dick. I was like, I'm
done.
But
at least all the other characters constantly dunk on him.
Oh
for
yeah,
being
yeah.
a
No, I
dick.
appreciated that. I was just like, I don't got
And
the
that
patience
makes
for this
that
protagonist.
makes you, or at least that made me have the patience of like bearing with it. And the character arc that guy goes through is really great. Like he goes from complete asshole to like super cool guy.
Yeah, you know
over the
who's
course of
already
single
a
game.
super cool guy from the start? Lloyd motherfucking Irving. He's got 2 swords because 2 swords equals 200 power.
Ah, are you a Kirito fan?
All right,
We gotta move on.
let's move on from this trash heap to another.
Yeah,
trash
the
heap.
next one is even worse.
I mean, this
So-
knowing nothing makes me go, oh, okay, what's this about?
Well,
You
no,
know-
for
you
me,
know what?
this title, I'm like, is this a young adult?
Right.
Like,
It's just, this
Yeah.
is something
Novel,
this is the like porn parody of
This-
Harry Potter.
This is
Peter
a
Grill
manga.
in the-
This is a manga set in a fantasy world that is rather common to a Dragon Quest game.
Okay, okay.
And there
You
is
know-
the guy Peter Grill who has just fought in the battle
I can't believe
tournament.
that's his name!
That's the best part. Yes,
It's Peter
the best part is his
motherfucking
name is
Grill.
Peter
Solid
Grill.
name.
Like-
Yes.
Is that
It's
like,
like-
Guy Fieri's evil twin?
It's just, it's so funny because it's like, look, I think, anytime Japan explores into fantasy settings and like kind of like reaches a little beyond their comfort zone and actually tries to pretend to be a little bit European, I think you sometimes get some really good stuff, right? Like like Favaro from Rage of
yeah.
Bahamut, right? And Kaisar. And then this one is just like, is this just one of those like Lost in Translations things where like Peter Grill sounds really badass in Japanese? Like, oh yeah, Peter Grill, holy shit. Like, oh, Peter Grill, that's a Jack Bauer. That's a Jack Bauer tier name. Fucking, you don't fuck with Peter Grill. Peter Grill, the legendary hero.
Right,
But,
when to us he just sounds like the barista at Starbucks or some shit.
Yeah,
Like,
it just sounds like your neighbor who who
Right,
you call
who's got
Peter
a- who's
Grill
got like
because
a-
he's always barbecuing
right,
outside.
or mowing his lawn, he's got like a big mustache.
yeah, and like maybe he slightly resents his last name because everybody kind of subconsciously expects him to host the neighborhood barbecue.
Uh-huh.
So you guys are burying the lead here, but first of all, the name, we didn't actually say the title of the show, which is Peter Grill and the Philosopher's Time, is what the English
Okay.
title is showing me here. And not only is harem anime back, but Monster Girl harem anime is back.
Oh, good.
And the plot of this one is Peter Grill, the strongest man in the world. He is engaged to this woman who doesn't understand how sex works, so they have not consummated their relationship. And in the meantime, there are a whole bunch of monster girls who want to bear him strong children. So he has to try to not sleep with them while trying to get his fiancée to sleep with him or something like that. I don't know.
I just realized, dude, I'm looking at the page. This is intentional. This is
this a
some
parody
This is some
or something?
this is some Dragon Ball shit. Okay, the main character's name is Peter Grill. Part of the cast
naming. Okay.
is
Yes.
Piglet Panchetta, Vegan Eldriel, and Mimi Alpacas.
Oh, that makes
What?
perfect sense.
I'm not sure about that last one there, but
What?
We're going with food names.
I think.
Oh, all the girls got to
Because they
get on
want
his
his
grill.
meat! Ah!
No, no, the girls are the meat, and they want to hop on his grill.
Tell me about the next one, Jel. Jel, tell
All
me
right,
about
you know
the
what? I think
next
I think that's all we have to say about Peter Grill, the philosopher.
I think that's all we've got.
Tell me about the next one, Jel.
All right, so the monster
It can't
girls
possibly
continue.
Be about monster girls, right?
No, this one is also about monster girls.
Oh,
This one is a monster girl doctor, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Wait, isn't that literally
Which
the
is-
premise of that one
Yeah,
good
distinct
Monster
from-
Girls show?
Yeah, but this is in the fantasy world, so...
Yeah, and according to the trailer, all of his doctoring involves sticking his hand on their chest. So,
You know, there's more to doctoring than that, right?
yeah,
like
I'm assuming they all fall in love with him or something. Yeah, something. I'm reading something about a marriage proposal from a centaur.
awesome.
Shinzo Abe, this is not gonna work out, man.
Yeah. So,
Great.
I'm guessing they were also going to get into like weird monster anatomy stuff.
Awesome.
Like,
How would a mermaid fuck? They have no bottom half.
right. That's probably the kind of things they're going to get into.
Didn't
but
we
it's
already
ultimately
have
just gonna.
interspecies reviewers for that? I mean,
I think this is ultimately just going to get into him feeling up, having a reason to feel up monster girls.
That reminds me of a cartoon I once saw, which is like this guy's making out with a mermaid, and it's like, oh honey, but how are we gonna do it? And then the mermaid says, don't worry, my tail. It's just a suit I'm wearing. I can take it off, the half you don't want, and then the next shot is just like him lying in bed next to a fish.
Right. Yep. That's the obvious gag.
sure.
That's pretty good. But the I don't understand why you would want to watch the show, because it seems like they're gonna have some sort of like super clinical premise to see naked monster
Tell
girls,
me about
and
the
like
next
there's
one, Jel.
so many other ways you could do that more efficiently.
Tell me about the next one, Jel.
Become as gods.
How do you guys think we say this one?
Gibiate?
Gibiate? I don't
The
know.
verb,
Whatever.
to gibiate. I gibiate, you gibiate.
This is
I mean, I feel like this one's
the-
barely worth talking about for the opposite reason, right? It just looks like...
it's like the not too distant future. There's a virus and
Time travel
samurais.
ninjas or something.
time traveling samurais
The
and
gimmick
ninjas show up from
here
the past to
is-
save
the gimmick
us.
here is that Yoshitaka Amano of Final Fantasy logo fame is on
Yes.
the art team.
Yes.
The show itself doesn't particularly look
Doesn't
like
look
Yoshitaka
anything like
Amano
it.
art.
Ah, so you mean everything Yoshitaka Amano has ever worked on?
Well, it's
Yeah.
funny. The trailer is literally flashing the Amano art over stuff in the beginning, just to like let you know, hey, this is our hook here. And then like the last like 10 seconds is like the actual anime, and it just
But
looks
yes,
like
otherwise the plot seems to be like, oh, there's a zombie monster apocalypse, and only this time-traveling Edo period samurai can save us all from these
right.
ethnic monsters.
Is the name of
Right.
the samurai Shinzo Abe?
I have been wondering if it like that's the angle they're going for, of like only our conservative samurai values can save us
I
from this
mean, this
modern
plot
threat.
summary
the thing is-
listed here says, once infected, patients become monsters and change their form, depending on age, sex, and nationality.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Well,
Oh, good. We get nationality-based demons or infected, whatever. Great.
This is also written and created by one Ryo Aoki, and he has no other credits.
Awesome. No, look, he
that's
he
just
worked
a-
on Bonjour, Sweet Love Patisserie. Patisserie. Some Otome.
Is that you, Mario
No,
Patisserie?
this is some
okay.
Otome game one.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. Like, you might be just half joking there, Jel. But honestly, I feel like that is probably kind of the vibe, right?
Yup.
Like, we have definitely been seeing a little bit of a like weird nationalist resurgence in our anime these past few years, and it would not surprise me in the slightest if this is leaning into that. I mean, as we have unfortunately have stated in the past, the unbelievably talented Yoshitaka Amano is also a cop, so
right. Well, he already drew what's his name as a samurai, right? That was a whole thing we talked about one time.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm not really putting any hopes in that one.
Yeah.
Also, have we seen a trailer of this? Because this might be CG.
It's not CG,
No,
but
I
it has
did-
CG monsters, and they look like
Oh.
ass.
Yeah, no, yeah, I saw the trailer. No, like I was saying, like most of the trailer is them flashing Amano art in the beginning, because that's all they've got basically to rely on, and then the end of it is just like boring.
Yep.
Anime.
Tell me about this next one, Joel.
All right, so the English title I got for this one is Mr. Love: Queen's Choice. The actual Japanese title is like Koito Producer Evil Cross Love or something like that, but the English title is
'cause
hilarious.
love is opposites from evil.
This is actually an Otome game adaptation?
Okay, sure.
Which
Look, but it's
is
called
about
Mr. Love Queen's Choice, which sounds like what if The Bachelor was made in Hong Kong in the 1980s.
Yeah. This looks like it's male idols or something.
Well, one of them is an idol. They're like all
Oh, I
different.
see. One's an
jobs.
idol. One's a cop. One's a scientist.
all the desirable jobs.
Right. One's a scientist. One's a
CEO.
right. And she's also
Wow.
The four classes. The four classes: idol, cop, scientist, and CEO.
she's your fighter.
The-
So yes,
Who's your
this
1%
girl
like,
this girl who's also like a CEO because she inherited her
sure.
company from her dad or something. So she's like this rich girl who gets to pick which hot guy she wants to.
I feel like the only thing missing here would be like a district attorney or something.
Right. So, I have not seen any indication that this is anything other than an otome game where you're the mousy girl protagonist and you woo what hot guy you want to woo.
Yeah, I mean, there's always one or two of these a season,
This
right?
is not
So,
even close to being the most offensive thing this season.
no,
But yes, but still not anything that.
not
Oh,
particularly.
apparently they have
superpowers.
superpowers.
What?
Oh yeah, they secretly have superpowers or
what?
something. But that does not really seem to be that important.
Do they
to be
fight
honest.
crime? Wait.
Don't-
So I was about to say a CEO, a cop, a scientist, and an idol are the last people I would want to be superheroes. But then I realized that in the MCU, all four of those are true. So
These are like 100% like superhero jobs. Like
How else do you?
Stuff-
How else
only
do you?
we'd only need a journalist and we'd cover like 90% of
I mean,
superhero
like,
secret
yeah.
identities.
What other jobs would you expect people to go out and beat up disenfranchised, criminals in their free time to have, dude? Like if you're just if you're a fucking CEO, and you go out on the weekends and use your superpowers to beat up, people who are robbing convenience
Poor
stores.
people?
Yeah, beat up poor people.
No man,
Dark
leave
way.
leave those to the cops. Real superheroes only beat up the mentally ill.
yeah, we got the real heroes are here, the police. Fuck, I can't even
Don't worry, guys.
say that with a
Don't worry,
straight
guys.
face.
Multi-billionaire CEO Bruce Wayne is here to break your bones for, trying to feed your children.
Right, and then what? Put you into the American medical system?
Yeah.
Like,
Thanks, Batman.
Right.
I think there's actually a comic about this. I think it's literally called. I think it's like Batman White Knight or something. But like,
Oh yeah.
it is literally about. Have you read it, Aqua?
Yeah,
It's actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I actually really liked it. We can't get into this tangent right now, but basically, like, the Joker like files a legal suit against Batman for every like fucked up thing he's ever done in his like vigilante justice.
The
career.
Joker's ultimate trump card, right? But all right.
Anyways,
The show doesn't look good either.
no.
Let's get to the last show on our list, which is Japan Sinks 2020.
Finally.
This is the next this is the next Science Saru project, which unfortunately has been sent to Netflix hell.
Yeah.
So
but
look
it
forward
is
to us talking about like 5 episodes at once 1 week.
right. It is coming out whatever capacity in July, so it's counting as this season. But I don't really know much about this other than Science Saru's doing it, which is enough to get attention at this point.
Yeah.
It's
Do you guys?
What if Ronald Emmerich movie, but directed by Yuasa?
Right. It's my understanding that it is a modern adaptation of a rather famous Japanese fiction novel
Yeah.
of the same name, Japan Sinks, and
It's like, is it like a disaster movie
Yeah.
type
basically,
thing?
yeah. I mean, Aqua was joking, but he's also not wrong about basically what if like Emmerich movie by way of Japanese fiction. My understanding is that it is fairly influential and has even gone on to like kind of inspire like not exactly like adaptations but imitators. My understanding is that at least in the manga sphere, parts of Japan sinking beneath the waves because of global catastrophe or climate change is actually a fairly common like disaster survival premise in manga. The thing I've heard about this one is that it is a like many Yuasa works, it is a somewhat of a loose adaptation. The things that I've read about Japan Sinks is that being kind of an older science fiction
From
novel,
like the 70s, right?
it is kind of more like it is more in that sort of like Godzilla-esque the original novel, I mean, framework of like the perspective of like the politicians and the scientists, right? Like the people in power, like trying to like figure out a solution. Whereas Yuasa's adaptation is specifically focusing on a civilian family who has been caught up in the disaster and their struggles during this event. So so it is an adaptation, but I think it is very much also Yuasa is going to be doing, his very Yuasa thing here.
Right.
Sure.
Well, I am more interested when Yuasa has some guidelines in place, at least. But yeah. All right, so maybe this is another one that could be okay. Like I said, I have not done much research on it myself, but at least it has the pedigree, right? So,
yeah, I'm very curious what kind of direction it takes because like it is Yuasa, so like. I am, because it's been on the news lately.
Tonally, he can go anywhere from Eizouken to Devil Man, Crybaby.
Right, because that's the thing, right? Like, it is a pseudo-apocalyptic premise, right? So it's like, is this going to be a heartwarming story of, like, the power of the human spirit to band together in the face of disaster? Or is this going to be Yuasa channeling Devilman Crybaby of humans are the worst and they deserve every awful thing that happens to them?
We're reaping what we sow.
Right. Like the Yuasa is a man of many dimensions, and I'm real curious which.
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah, which he takes with this one.
Yeah. All right. Well, maybe we just need to get used to these Netflix shows dumping tons of episodes on us.
Yeah.
And figure out how best to tackle all that, but something to keep an eye on.
Alrighty. Tell me about this next one, Joel. Wait. I guess we're at the end of the list.
We are at the end of the list, yes. So
we somehow made it.
Survived. We made it.
Yay, we did it.
It's going to be fun when we have to actually cover all these.
Yeah, again, like...
We're going to give them all to Collins and Chris.
I think it's easy... it is definitely easy to very much dunk on these shows, and it is definitely not a promising season, but I think that, as always, there are a couple things here that, we'll
be okay... If the shows that have potential live up to the potential, will probably be okay.
Yes, that's the way I'm putting it, right? If the shows that look okay here are actually good, like, we will at least have things to talk about next season. I think
we have no margin for error, though.
Yeah. It's just that, like, I think it's funny because in a weird way, this is maybe putting at the forefront. We are, for better or worse, we have to put our money where our mouth is here, because I think we have definitely, our group in the past, I think, have definitely mentioned and called out, like, Japan's kind of, like, the heinous working conditions that happen in Japanese animation, and, like, I think, at least some of us in the past have definitely said, I don't think we would mind if there was less anime every season, if it meant, like, the workers were living under more humane conditions, and, I don't know, is this season basically them trying to call us out on our bluff? Like, oh, you want less anime? Okay, here's less anime. Spoilers, the percentage of good to bad didn't change. Or maybe it got worse.
No, the percentage got worse, right.
And it's like...
Well, that's the thing, like, are these the one... I was wondering... Like, because obviously this is ultimately caused by the pandemic and not because of some greater purpose of improving how things are going in the anime industry. But, why are these the 11 shows that that were able to continue on versus, things that could have been better?
Yeah,
is this pure coincidence?
In a world
where,
because
some of these are easier to make?
Yeah.
Is it because some of these they feel like they're gonna be a safer return on investment? I don't know.
Yeah, like, in a world where even, like, fucking Gundam decides to take a break, like, why are these the shows that are, like, nah, we're committing, like, we're gonna, this is
I think
it
it's
for us.
very much coincidence, like, what ended up on which studio's schedule, like...
Yeah, and I mean, the shows that continue, are the returning shows, I guess, even though we might not like them, are higher profile at the very least.
True,
right?
true. Like,
so I mean, it might just be coincidence how this ended up shaking out, but I don't know. Do you have to do a ton of planning for Dokyuu Hentai Heroes as compared to any other? Like, I don't want to downplay how much work actually goes into animating.
Right, like even the worst
I got this drawing
here.
off a tit here. Which episode does it go in? I don't know. Just put it somewhere.
I'm just saying, I feel like they probably didn't need to spend several weeks on serious composition for.
Yeah, of course, yes.
For that one, so I don't know. It's an interesting questions as we are in these unprecedented times.
And I know this is a real cop-out statement, but I think I will definitely be curious to see what fall season looks like, because I think I need to I need to see what are the long-term effects of 2020 on anime production. Like, like is the lockdown affecting just this season, or is it going to affect next season as well? Right? Like how much are things getting like affected by this, right? Like, for example, Beastars, the Beastars anime got announced for 2021, and it's like, how much of that is the lockdown versus like, just business as usual, right? Like, how far-reaching will the effects of this all be?
And like, you have to wonder too, like, if studios go 2 seasons without putting anything out, are they going to survive?
Yeah.
Like, how is this what's finally going to force the downsides like we're talking about, just out of sheer financial burden of either delaying or not making anything for half a year, which is, I mean, that's how a lot of businesses are being affected, not just anime, of course, but, is this what ends up bursting the bubble where maybe we are only going to get 10 new shows a season or something like that, so...
Only time will tell.
Exactly.
Oh, wait, one more thing. Just because we're talking about the lockdown. Arrow.
What?
So...
What now? Yes?
In the state of California, the lockdown started March 19th.
Okay.
In a previous podcast, you made a 91 days joke.
Oh, damn.
Well, I've done the math. I'm happy to say that as of this recording... It has been 94 days since the lockdown started.
I remember making that joke and be like, well, let's hope it's not going to be 91 days.
Well, it's been 91 plus 3, so...
Awesome.
Hooray.
Watch 91 Days, by the way. That's a good show.
Yeah, that's a good anime. Underappreciated. Go check that out if you have not, because you're probably going to have a lot of time in your anime watching schedule this season, so... All right, we're done. Let's wrap this up then with our housekeeping. Check us out at theglorioblog.com. We will eventually be previewing these like we normally do, I think, if I can muster the strength to watch some of these. We said we'll be back next episode with our spring season wrap up, so stay tuned for that. Follow us on Twitter at the GLORIO blog. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, and YouTube. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we'll catch everybody next time. Bye. してられない街に繰り出せよって踊る